Hi everybody, welcome back to the Claremont Classic Garage. Today we're going to get all the parts for our 833 overdrive transmission cleaned up, inspected, measured, yada yada yada, figure out what we need and source it. We've also got to probably make at least one tool, and some of the stuff that I think I need to buy, I got to scrounge around in my junk. Who knows what we have around this place. We've got all our parts and pieces all cleaned up. Now we're going to go through it bit by bit by bit. And we're going to take stock of everything. We're going to note what parts need to be replaced. And we're going to make a shopping list and see what we got to do to go about procuring them. First up is the tail housing. We're going to inspect the bushing for the drive shaft yoke. It's fine. There's no marks or gouges or anything in it. Now we're going to chase all the threads. I've gone ahead and got this all cleaned up. All the mating surfaces are clean. The last thing I have to do, this breather is completely seized, stuck. It's probably plugged, which would explain why this thing leaked so bad. So what we have to do is this thing has got it's got like an oil baffle in the top that keeps the speedo helix from throwing all the oil out the breather. So it's just popped in there. So we're going to pop that out, and we might be able to knock the breather out from the inside, or we may have to chisel it off and drill it out. And then we've got this little guy here. This one is a 1/8 pipe thread. We'll get it so we can screw this one in. So I got a little baffle out. It just snaps in there. And now you can see our vent. So I'm going to get, I think with a long punch, I can knock it out from the outside. We'll see. That was great. It came right out. And you can see that the hole is the right size. We can just run a 1/8 pipe tap down it and screw in this little breather. Okay, there we go. That's perfect. Now I'll blow the chips out of it, clean up the baffle, put it back in, and we can move on. Now we're going to pop in the rear seal. So I've gone ahead and packed the back side of it with grease so that the little spring doesn't fall out. We've talked about that before. We've greased up the lip. And now when we put it in, you see it's got that little vent hole. It's got two things. It's got a vent hole and it's got a little notch. So the vent hole goes to the bottom, or the little notch goes to the top, however you want to look at it. So we'll line that up. There we are. So the little vent hole's at the bottom. And now we've got this that fits over that nicely. And this piece of stuff on top, and we'll just knock it in with a hammer. And there we are. Yes, I could go ahead and clean this thing all up and paint it, but quite frankly, this would have been its natural look, bare cast iron, and it would have looked exactly like this after 2 weeks on the road. So that's good enough for us. We can put the tail stock aside now. It's all done. Now we can turn our attention to the case. The first thing I'm going to do is go around it and clean up all the sealing surfaces, the gasket surfaces. And then we're going to use all of our various taps that we've got. And we're going to chase all the threads. And I'll see you when we're back. And then we'll give it a good looking over. Here's our case all cleaned up and ready to go. It's looking really good. I did find one issue. So the reverse idler shaft and the counter shaft go in there, and you can see there they've got a little slot in the back of them, and you insert this key, and the key sits down in there, right, and locks the shaft from turning. Well, I guess they lost the one for the counter shaft, and somebody made that one. Well, that's not good enough, and you can see here the groove where it's been turning around. The counter shaft has been turning. And look at that. That's the wear on the back side of the counter shaft plug from the front of the case. Scary stuff, kiddies. Luckily, we can buy these. So I'm going to get from the transmission parts place 2 new keys. we have to get a new plug. I've also put on my list a gasket set. I don't need seals. I already have the seals. And our list will grow as we go. So here's our input retainer. Nothing really much to do here. We cleaned it up with some 320 emery and knocked a new seal in it. We used a 1 1/8 socket. Sorry, I forgot to show you that, but it's in. Lip towards the oil, as always. Next, we could check the reverse idler. Not much really to do here. The bushing is good. You can feel it. It turns nice. It slides back and forth nice. We can just go ahead and reuse that as is. Next, we've got the cluster gear or the counter gear, whatever they want to call it. Not much to do with this. It's a pretty robust piece, right? So we're going to check it over for chipped or broken teeth. See these two grooves here? That is just identification. It's nothing to do with anything. That's just so on the line they could tell, okay, we need this transmission gets a 2-groove cluster gear. Then we want to check inside on either end where the rollers go. Make sure it's not gored or gouged up. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. Now what we do have to do is put this on a nice surface, measure down, figure out how long this thing is, and add the thickness of the 2 thrust bearings on the end, because we need to make an arbor for installing and removing this thing. Same deal with this. This is the cluster shaft or the counter gear shaft. The cluster gear shaft. If it looks good, it is good. Run your hand along it. If you don't feel any, wows, like low spots where the bearings have been running, it's fine. This thing is perfect. It's like new. Now we've got the input shaft and what would normally be the 4th gear synchro, but in this, because 4th and 3rd are swapped around, it's actually the 3rd gear synchro. But this is what locks, this one is what locks the main shaft to the input shaft for direct. So what you want to do, checking synchros, first you're going to see, you see those nice little lines in there, right? That's what does the stopping. The whole idea of a synchronizer is to bring these 2 shafts to the same speed as you do the shift, right? So those little lines there, they hold oil and they cut oil. You don't want a bunch of oil in there in between these 2 things when you're trying to shift gears. So what this thing does is it's a taper, and it jams against that taper there, and that's what makes the 2 shafts go. How do I say this? It equalizes the speed of the 2 things you're trying to lock together. In this case, the input shaft and the main shaft. So what you're also looking for is that when the synchro is pushed against the cone, see that? We've still got a good space in between there. Because if the synchro goes down there and touches that, that means it's worn out and it's not going to do its job. But there's nothing wrong at all with this synchro. And if the other 3 are in the same shape, that's good news. That's probably $100 we don't have to spend on this thing. And these are the later, I guess, 70 and up lug style synchros. Also, while we've got the input shaft, we're going to check the... Beautiful. That bearing is beautiful. And we're going to have a look at the... oh, the rollers all just fell out. Our rollers in there, that's all right. We'll fix them up when we go to put it together. Next up is the 3/4 synchronizer assembly. And what would normally be 3rd gear, but is actually overdrive. So, same thing. We're going to make sure we've got our gap there, which we do. All the teeth in this synchro look great. Also, most of the damage you're going to see is going to be on the 1-2 synchro. Even if the car hasn't been abused, it just gets used more. There's so many times, especially in traffic. 1st, 2nd, back to 1st. Up to 2nd, back to 1st. And the 3/4 synchro might not ever get used. It just gets used more, But anyway, this one's okay. So it can just go right back in. So here's the 1-2 synchro. Let's see what we got here. This in my hand is second gear. Everything looks good. I don't think anybody's really been slam shifting this thing, you know. You got to look at just the very tips of those little guys. There's some wear on them, but it's not too bad. And we can see our synchro. It's got lots of life left on the blocker ring. Gets down in there. There we go. This here is reverse. See the straight cut gear? That's reverse. So here we've got first gear. And you can see that the synchro ring is in great shape again. This transmission is really a nice shape inside. And then this is the rear bearing for the main shaft. And it is just gliding beautifully, smooth as can be. Now we've got the main shaft or the output shaft, whatever you want to call it. And not much to do here. We're just looking for any galling. These are bearing surfaces where the gears run on. And there is no bushings. The gears, it's just metal on metal. They're just so bathed in gear lube. That's what protects them. Then we want to pay particular attention to the pilot on this. This is what engages the roller bearings in the back of the input shaft. It's all good. This shaft is beautiful. It's still got its black coating on it from new. Just beautiful. One of the few things I'm worried about, I forgot to point out, is this bore where the seal for the reverse selector shaft comes out. It was pretty, well it is, it's pretty pitted. It's just an O-ring that goes in there with a little retainer. I'm going to measure up this bore and see if I can get a proper oil seal that I can install in there instead of relying on just the O-ring. I may look that up tonight, see what I can find out. Otherwise, we'll come up with some kind of solution for it. Now I got the side cover. There's not really a lot to do. Here you can see here's the interlocks. All we'll do is we'll pull these. You can see these little nylon retainers. Those are what hold the O-rings down in the bore. And you can see these ones are actually stuck in there. The reverse one, which is down here, I guess because it's more in the salt stream, it was loose and it's just a mess. That's where the big oil leak that this thing had was probably coming from. So we'll work these things out. You just get them out with a screwdriver. You just gently work them out, right? See, you can see it moving. They come out. Get these out. I've got new O-rings to go in there. And I found some. I was going to just order the right ones that belong to it. But I found some here that are pretty much the right size, but just a tiny little bit fatter. So they'll get a good seal. And I may even be able to get one of those to work on that reverse shaft. We'll see when we start putting things together. Yeah, they easily came right out. And you can see here, these bores are nice and crisp and clean. They're beautiful. We'll be able to just put O-rings back in there and carry on. And the beauty of this, because it's an unmolested bore, we'll be able to measure this bore for speccing out the seal, like I said I want to put in this guy down here. Incorrect. Believe it or not, the reverse bore is larger than these two. Huh. I would have guessed they'd be the same, but they're not. That's okay. We can work with it. Last but not least is the throwout bearing. I'm pretty sure I've got a new one over in the barn with the clutch and everything. I've got a new clutch and everything to put in it. But it's -20 and dark over there. So for now, this will have to wait. Worst case scenario, there's absolutely nothing wrong with this throwout bearing. I worked a little oil into it. It's quiet. It's smooth. So I would have no hesitation at all using this one. Here we are. I cleaned up all our hardware, so that's all ready to go. The last two things we have to, oh, and I swapped out our mangled speedo adapter for a really nice one. I got a few of them. Now what we have to do is we have to make the arbor tool for the counter shaft, and we have to come up with some kind of action plan for these shift forks. This one here, the 3-4, I can actually buy a new one. But the 1-2 here, it's in really bad shape. I think I got an idea how to fix it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and braise these up. I'm just going to put a nice layer of braise on this, get it nice and hot, and put braise on it, and then we're going to machine it down. There's a couple of ways you can do this. You can really carefully just hold it in a vise and do it with a flap disc on an angle grinder, you know. But we're going to mount it on the mill and see if we can mill it down nice and smooth and see what happens. This one, at least I know, this is the 3-4 fork. I know I can buy this new. If I screw this up, I'm okay. I could save my butt and buy a new one. And then once we know it works, this one here, the 1-2 fork, that's the one that's hard to find. That's the unobtainium one. So we'll try this one first. I'm just working on a way of holding it down on the mill. Well, here we go. Let's see what happens. We're going to brace this thing up. Like I said, this is the 3-4 fork. So if I wreck this one, I can at least buy a new one for 28 bucks. The other one, big trouble. In fact, this fork is still available from the GM dealer, or it was until recently. I believe it was also used in some kind of a new process transfer case. There we go. So let's see what happens. I got to get this kind of warm but not really hot because I need to blob this stuff on. And we'll heat it up slowly. Without warping it all to hell. There we go. She's warming up now. I don't know a lot about metallurgy and stuff. I don't know if I'm supposed to treat this or something when I'm done. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. There we go. She's getting red. It is old school stuff, man, doing stuff like this. There we go. Now we gotta let it cool off. Well, here we are, the moment of truth. I'm gonna slowly start cutting, and then I'll come back and show you what we're doing. Well, it did okay on that side, so I left the height adjustment exactly the same, so we'll take a cut on this side and see what happens. I'm not sure exactly how accurately these things were made. They didn't even have like the pads on these things were not finished. They were just forged, and that was it. It let the transmission wear it in. So let's see. Oh, it's cutting. Well, we're doing something, aren't we? Okay, let's get it out of here and see what we've got. Ah, there we go. Perfect. Oh, I'm full of myself now. I'm going to do the other one. This side is worn worse, so we'll fix this side first because this side's a little better. It might sit a little bit better on that side when we machine it. And then once we got this side straightened out, we'll flip it over and do the other side. Okay, there's those all fixed up. Last thing we have to do is make the tool for the cluster gear. We've got this hunk of iron plumbing pipe. It's 1 inch and 60 thousandths. We need to take 100 thou off it. We need to make it 960 thousandths. So we're going to start working on that. Stupid me. I should have made it long enough that I could turn the entire length of it down to diameter and then cut off the end and face it. But anyway, that's not what I did. So we'll just have to cut most of it and then flip it over and cut the rest. No worries. Okay. There's our tool all made up, worked out perfectly. And that's it. We are ready to go. Just gotta order my parts and wait for them to show up. Well, that all went pretty well. No real huge surprises. Just, you know, a couple of things. It's old. There's a lot of parts in it. Something's going to be screwed up, right? Anyway, I'll let you know when the parts get here and we'll put this thing back together. Anyway, I'm going to go now. I'd like to thank you for tuning in, and I hope you'll come back and see us again on the Claremont Classic Garage. And until then, I'm Kevin, saying so long for now.